Good morning, Royal We Fellowship. Good Saturday morning. Shabbat Shalom, and happy Resurrection Weekend for many of you. This is the weekend that a lot of people celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. We had Good Friday. We have the Easter. Um, it just the Resurrection Weekend, right? So thank you all for joining me this morning as well as a part of Royal We Fellowship. We are not going to be talking about the resurrection of Jesus this weekend. We are still continuing on from the ancient literature of the Old Testament, grabbing onto our understanding of how it applies to our lives today when we're able to see the toxicity of the world that surrounds us, even from an ancient perspective. And many of us are coming from horrible family situations, horrible narcissistically abusive situations, dealing with toxic people. And one of the things that we are understanding about our own experiences with toxic relationships is that it's not new. Toxicity is not new. Evil is not new. And the ancient literature of the Bible has a lot to share with us about navigating through this world of toxicity, of narcissistic people in general, and how narcissism can grip you. And today we're going to see exactly how narcissism can play out, how narcissism builds up in a person who becomes rageful and vengeful, and how it can have severe consequences on somebody's life. But the most important thing at the end of today's story, we're going to see how the narcissism displayed in other people does not, in fact, change you as an individual. Okay, it does not have to, and we're going to see that. Now, if you're new to Royal We Fellowship, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. Again, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Make sure that you are also part of Royal We, is to see the videos. I'm putting out videos every week on the organic Royal We channel. There's also Monday Night Live Chat. And in addition to that, thank you for all your support. If you would like to be a supporter of Royal We Fellowship, it is not required but inspired, and you will find links down below to be able to support Royal We Fellowship. Now, let's go ahead and open up in prayer, which, by the way, somebody told me last week that I forgot to open up in prayer, and I do apologize for that. I just was so excited to get right into where we were going. So we want to make sure that we open up in prayer this morning. Our Father, who are in heaven, how holy is your name, and your kingdom come, and your will shall be done, here on this earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day and each and every day our daily bread, and forgive us of our sins as we forgive those who have sinned against us. Lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from the evil that is in this world. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. And everybody says, amen. Now, let's not forget that part of this prayer is to help us and to protect us from the evil that is in this world. Now, how many of you realize by now that evil surrounds us in this world? When I do one-on-one coaching sessions, a lot of times I find myself helping people to understand and realize that in a lot of ways, we live in the devil's sandbox. This place called Earth, this sand pit, this sand trap that we live in, that we're here for a short time. We are subject to the principalities that have been allowed to govern this world. The principalities are that of evil, right? The devil is known as the prince of this world. It was the devil that took Jesus to a high place in the New Testament and told him on the third and final temptation, do you see everything? Everything in this sandbox below you? Do you see all the kingdoms that men have built up, their sand castles to the sky? Do you see all of it? The devil says, I will give it to you if you bow down and worship me. The devil would not be able to tell Jesus, I will give it to you, if the devil did not have a governing role or superiority or dominance or authority or the principalities over this earth that we live in. This is something that we need to really grasp and understand. The first part of understanding why narcissism is possible, why evil is possible, is to first understand and accept the nature of the world that we live in. It's a broken, fallen world, we tend to want to believe and hope that this world is good and people are inherently good. It's not true. It never was true. It never will be true. And yes, we have to live on guard because of this. Now, let's jump into today's message. Enough about that. We are in Genesis chapter 38. So last week we were in chapter 39. We are in Genesis chapter 39. Last week we were in Genesis chapter 38. And just to recap what happened last week in Genesis chapter 38, what we see is it follows the line of some of Joseph's brothers. Now, to go back a couple of chapters, Joseph's brothers, in a narcissistic fit of rage out of their jealousy and their envy, they conspired with one another in a mob mentality, a narcissistic mob mentality, to get rid of their brother Joseph. Why? Because Joseph was young and ambitious and creative. He had dreams of being successful. He had dreams of being great, and they did not like it. And also, Joseph was not a part of his brother's group. His brothers were all older than him. They already had their clique. And so already you can see the makings of the narcissistic mob mentality. This is especially true. Some of you have experienced this when you go into work and you're walking into a place where already there's a clique of people, and maybe initially they treat you good, they treat you kind, they welcome you in. But then once they see that you have the potential to be favored, you have the potential to be better, you have the potential to be greater, you're a good worker, you have good ethics, you have good morals, they start to conspire against you because they don't want that around. They want to maintain their clique. This is also true with families. This is what I've experienced with in-laws, right? They want to maintain their clique. And so Joseph's brothers did that. And they conspired against him. Some of them even wanted to kill him. But some of the brothers said, no, let's not kill him. There's no gain out of that, only pain. And so they sold him off to people going to Egypt. They sold him off as a slave. Then they lied and told their dad, Joseph's father, that he was mauled by an animal. Okay. Chapter 38, which was last week then, it continues on with the story of Judah. Judah was one of the brothers. Judah was one of the brothers who did not want Joseph to die, yet Judah was part of getting rid of him. He did not do anything to help Joseph, and he should have stepped in, but he did not. It follows his life where Judah leaves, and he's really wrestling with figuring out who he is. There's all kinds of things of him trying to get his sons to have children. He sleeps with a prostitute who ends up being his daughter-in-law. It's just a mess. We see how evil was working its way in Judah, how Judah was living under the curse of what he had been done. Judah has so much growing up to do, and we saw all that last week. Now, this week, we're going to be going back to Joseph. Joseph now has made his way into Egypt. He was sold into slavery as a young boy, and now we're picking up with him being in Egypt, away from his family. He is struggling with the pain of the rejection of his brothers. He is struggling with, he's on his own in a new foreign place, not just any place, but Egypt. Egypt, far away from his family. Egypt was known as a place, by the way, for those around, right? In the line of Abraham, Egypt was a place not to go to and not to stay. Egypt was I would say, the Las Vegas of the world, right? It was the big, mega sinful place. That was Egypt. It was the place where pagan worship was rampant. It was the place where just immoral behavior, sexuality, all the things that you could imagine, right? The sensuality, everything was in this place called Egypt. It was the great power of that time. It was not a place that people following the word of God directly would want to live in. Yet this is where Joseph, as a young boy, was shipped off to in slavery. So here we open up Genesis chapter 39. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. Now the Lord, in verse 2, was with Joseph, so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Now, I want you to notice something. We see here that Joseph, even at a young age, found success. He found success with his master. Now, I want you to look at this. Joseph was a broken, very confused, very sad young individual. His family had just rejected him, yet what others saw was the true Joseph, right? Was success. Now, let's define this success. What is the success that Joseph had that Potiphar took notice of? Because Joseph was just a young man, by the way. He hadn't been in Egypt. He had no time to work and to save up money and to buy and sell and trade. He didn't have that kind of success, not at all. What did Joseph have? Well, when we look at the New Testament, we get some insight as to how Jesus was actually able to gain a following and to have success without having anything. Because as we know, Jesus had no money to trade. Jesus had no wealth. Jesus didn't build anything. Jesus didn't buy and sell. He wasn't Grant Cardone, right? Or Ty Lopez. It's not this type of success we're talking about. It's not the worldly success. When they're talking about the success that they're finding in the people's eyes, what we found is that there's three things. Wisdom. These people, you and I, Jesus, and also Joseph, displayed great wisdom. What does this mean? It means great discernment, great wisdom. When there is a question being asked, there's a very honest and genuine response. There's wisdom in being able to figure out how something works. There's wisdom in being able to stay focused. This is Joseph. Stature. What is stature? This is number 2. First one is wisdom. The second one is stature. Stature is also reputation, the way in which you hold yourself, the way in which others watch you. And you better believe that people were watching Joseph, an outside slave boy in Potiphar's house. He was being carefully watched by other guards, by other people, and they had nothing bad to say about him. They said to Potiphar, that young Joseph, he is doing nothing but working. He hasn't tried to take anything of yours. He's doing his responsibilities, and he does it tirelessly. He does it endlessly. He is a good worker. So he was gaining stature. He was gaining reputation by being focused. And then finally, favor. So wisdom, stature, reputation, and favor. If you have wisdom and you work with wisdom in your life, if you have good stature, if you develop a good reputation through integrity and honesty and the way in which you work, you're going to find favor. People are going to favor you. People are going to say, you know, that Joseph, that Susan, that Sally, they're hard workers. They come in, they do their job. I like them, right? That's favor. So Joseph found this success in Potiphar's eyes. In the Egyptian, the second in command over all Egypt, the slave boy found favor. Potiphar was impressed. I like this kid. So Potiphar, as we see, verse 4, Potiphar put him in charge of his household. And Potiphar entrusted him to his care, everything he owned. In verse 5, from the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of Egypt, of the Egyptian, of Potiphar, because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and out in the field. In verse 6, so Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food that he ate. So Joseph, through his wisdom, through his, what were the three things again? His wisdom, through his stature, through his favor, Joseph maintained everything of Potiphar's. Now we're going to get into some trouble. We're going to see more narcissism displayed in poor Joseph. Not only was he rejected and thrown out by his brothers, but now he's about to have one of the most, I would say, scary ordeals with a narcissist, right? That anybody could possibly have, especially once you're in this place where you finally found favor. You feel like you've got this, right? And this is something that we all can fall victim to. But at the end of this, you're going to see how it's going to work out for you if you can maintain who you are. So it says this after verse 6. It says, now Joseph was well built and handsome. All right, so all the ladies were swooning, right? So not only was Joseph wise, not only was Joseph good in favor, good in reputation, but he was handsome and well built. So the fact that the Bible goes into saying in the ancient literature that Joseph was well built, I am guessing that a lot of people were either out of shape or Joseph was incredibly muscular. Good genes, okay? So he was handsome and well built. Verse 7 says this, and after a while, his master, Potiphar, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and immediately says, come to bed with me. Wow. All right. So Joseph's working. He's using his wisdom. He's found favor. He has done nothing to indicate that he wants anything except to focus on what the task he has been given, right? And we see that Potiphar's wife checks this dude out and says, whoa, I want me a piece of that beefcake right there, right? And we see immediately the narcissism, the evilness well up inside Potiphar's wife. We are going to see the manifestation of the evilness of narcissism and just how damaging it can be. So the spirit of narcissism presents itself through Potiphar's wife with the selfish desire growing within this woman's demand for Joseph to sleep with her. It's a completely selfish desire. It considers nothing about Joseph. It considers nothing about her husband, Potiphar. It considers nothing about anything that can go wrong. All it is that selfish desire. I want me some of that Joseph. There it is right there, that 5-year-old narcissistic, I get what I want attitude. And we can immediately recognize the narcissistic nature in Potiphar's wife, this woman, through those two things. Number one, the selfishness. I want Joseph, right? No matter my position, no matter my authority, no matter I'm married, it doesn't matter. I want Joseph. And then number two, the lack of empathy. The lack of empathy is, it doesn't matter. I'm completely blinded and shut out to what could possibly go wrong. It doesn't matter that I'm married. It doesn't matter that my husband is second in command. It doesn't matter what happens to Joseph as a result. It doesn't matter what happens to my husband as a result. Heck, it doesn't even matter what happens to me as a result. I just want that shiny new thing right there. And his name is Joseph. This is narcissism. And this is going to play out very, very badly for a lot of people. In a little bit, we're going to see this narcissism turn into narcissistic rage as well. Now, Joseph, because we know that Joseph operated in wisdom, he operated in finding favor and in his reputation, his stature. And Joseph was also a person of integrity. And so he refused this woman in verse 8. He refused Potiphar's wife. He says this to her in verse 8, with me in charge, he told her, my master, meaning your husband, my master doesn't concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Now, I want you to recognize something. Joseph says, how can I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? He doesn't say, how can I do such a wicked thing and sin against Potiphar, your husband? And too many of us do this. Too many of us in our lives, we come to this place and when someone's making a request, we humanize it. How can I do this thing and sin against Potiphar? How can I do this thing and I don't want to do this to hurt that other person? What we're really doing and what Joseph is reminding us here is that the only reason Joseph has found favor to begin with is because of God. God has brought him to this place. God has put him in this position. God is the one who's responsible for giving Joseph his wisdom, his stature, and his favor. Oftentimes, you and I forget this when we land that great job, when we find ourselves in this good new church, when we find ourselves in this good new group. We sometimes humanize the situation and we think, oh, if it only wasn't for this person or that person, that's why I'm here. And we take God completely out of the situation, and we fail to recognize that God, in a lot of ways, has worked things in the background to get you where you are. Joseph recognizes that, and right at this moment, he says, how could I do such a thing, what you're implying? You want me to sleep with you, being Potiphar's wife. How can I do this wicked thing and sin against God who put me here? God who gave me favor in your husband's eyes. I'm going to be going against what God has instructed me to live my life doing. Do you follow me? Joseph, do you see the wisdom also in Joseph? Do you see why now in his one response? Do you see why he found favor? Do you see why he had good stature? Do you see why he had a good reputation? See, Joseph didn't just live his life humanizing everything, making everything about the people. I'm doing this for you. I'm serving you. I'm doing this because you're the greatest. Oh my gosh, I'm here because of you. I'm here because, no. Joseph realized that he was under a higher authority, a higher power. He worked as though he worked for God. He answered to God, and he let this be known to this woman. Why would I do this wicked thing and sin against God? And it would appear to me this woman had no clue as to what he's talking about. The Egyptians at that time, much like narcissism of this world and anywhere, they don't acknowledge God. They may acknowledge God superficially. Yeah, I'm a believer. Yeah. But what they tend to do is put God so far out there that they humanize everything. I'm here because of this person. I'm here because of that person. God's not really watching. And we see that in this woman. God's not really watching. It doesn't matter. We're all just people. And so she persistently, after Joseph refused her that day, refused to go to bed with her, she persisted. Verse 11, one day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left the cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. Now we see that Potiphar's wife was persistent. She still wanted Joseph. Joseph's answer of why would I sin against God didn't matter to her, right? When you deal with narcissists, they don't believe that nonsense anyways. They're going to be persistent because they do not share that same understanding. When selfishness is in play, God doesn't matter. When I want that new thing, is what Potiphar's wife is saying, God doesn't matter. God's not here in the situation. It's me and it's you, baby. Come on, Joseph. Give me what I want. We're just people. We're humans. God's not going to care, right? That is the attitude of narcissism versus the wisdom, stature, and favor that God had given to Joseph. Now we see that narcissists can be persistent. I wouldn't doubt that this was that for the longest time since that first interaction and now, right? When she grabbed him by his cloak, I believe she's been trying the entire time. Every single time. I believe what the Bible is leaving out is all the seductive ways in which she probably tried to get Joseph to go to bed. I would not doubt that for a moment Joseph went in there to do his household duties and she was standing there naked in front of him. I would not doubt that she crawled up on the bed and put herself in compromising, twisted positions, laying herself out, putting her perfume on, right? Putting lingerie on or whatever the Egyptians did back then. I believe this woman was doing it nonstop, trying to do anything to get Joseph to go to bed with her. It became a sport. It became a game. And to narcissists, you have to understand that this is what it becomes. You become a game to them. And those of you women who deal with narcissistic guys, the game may not be them getting naked and sprawling themselves out, but it will be a game of the mind right? How many of you women have once lived a life where you said, a guy needs to be able to get into my head in order to win me over? Well, guess what? There are men out there who do those types of gymnastics, those seductive gymnastics, just to get inside of your head. And this woman, she couldn't get to Joseph through mental gymnastics, but I've no doubt in my mind that she was assertively grabbing him, tugging him, seducing him, using her body, using whatever she could to try to seduce young Joseph. Narcissists can be persistent. And many of us, many people will fall for the persistence. Many of us fall into the sad belief that the narcissist persistence must mean that they really care. How many of you fell into that trap? Because of the narcissist persistence, because of their persistent efforts to get into your head, or you guys watching, because the woman persistently looked sexy around you. She persistently wore her shortest skirt around you. She persistently touched your shoulder. She persistently put her hand on your lap. She kissed you on the cheek. She persistently did everything to lead you into believe, wow, this person really likes me. This person really desires me. This person really wants me. This is what that woman, Potiphar's wife, was doing to Joseph. She persistently, and many people will buckle, myself included, many will buckle at the persistence, mistaking the persistence for love, mistaking the persistence as what we really need in our life. It takes a great deal of knowledge. It takes a great deal of knowing who you are and what your place is in life and who you're actually serving in order to resist the temptation of narcissism, in order to shut down the narcissist. The only way that Joseph was able to shut this woman down is because of the answer he gave earlier. Why would I do this and sin against God? Yes, I get that you want me. I get you're naked. You've taken everything off from me. You're tugging at me. You want me to go to bed with you, but I serve God, and God has not given me permission to go near you. God has told me you're married. That's just the reality. And God has told me how I'm supposed to be in this relationship. The only true way that you and I can resist temptation from narcissists, the temptation to fight with them, the temptation to sleep with them, the only way we can resist these temptations, people, is to actually believe and serve a higher power. That's the only way. The Royal We family. And this is why I need to let you know this message is so important, possibly the most important message that you can hear all week. The only way to resist the temptation of a narcissistic person is to serve something greater than people around you. Period. End. Now, this is going to play out in a bad way. We're going to see how her narcissism shifts from just her desire to now the narcissistic rage. She sees that all of her efforts fail, and so she's going to slip into a narcissistic rage, and many of you have experienced exactly what Joseph is going to experience right here. Verse 13 says this: when she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand. Now remember, she grabbed his cloak. She tried to disrobe him, right? At a point where many guys would fail, she was already undressing Joseph, and she was probably naked herself, saying, come on, let's do this, Joseph. Come on, man. Come on, baby. Give it to me. Took his cloak off. Joseph split. He ran. He said, stop. I can't do this. I'm out. He left. And it was such a difficult situation for Joseph to even be in, that this woman was trying so aggressively to sleep with him, that he left his cloak in her hand. And now she had what she needed to slip into her narcissistic rage and cause all kinds of hell to break loose. And now, one of the things that we notice, and I'm not trying to make this about men versus women, but we know that narcissistic abuse exists on all sides of the spectrum, where men become physically aggressive and violent as a result of narcissistic rage. They become loud and angry. What we typically see with women is their ability to not care about how they affect anybody but their lies and their stories, and how they make stuff up to smear another person, to gossip, to verbally assault and to discredit and to attack somebody and to destroy their character. Women are excellent at character assassination when it comes to the narcissistic spectrum, where guys do physical, loud, aggressive physical destruction. Women are capable of all kinds of character assassination, and we see this played out right here. When she saw that he left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, again, Joseph was done with this woman. I think that this was the final way in which he told this woman, "I'm not having anything to do with you." He straight up ran. She grabbed his cloak, said, "Come on, sleep with me, let's do this." He gave her the backside. Boom. There's my backside, and she got to watch that muscular butt run out, right? And she was in a narcissistic fit of rage. Like most narcissists who don't get what they want, she went into a rage. Obviously, she wasn't strong enough to force or to make Joseph do anything, but she turned to that spirit of narcissism and its ability to work through her to once again lie, smear, and assassinate a person's character who didn't give her what she wanted. So verse 14, she called her household servants and said this, "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew boy has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed, and when he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." The very same cloak that she ripped from Joseph, she used it to twist the story to now say that Joseph has been coming in to try to sleep with her. This is what narcissists instantly do when they don't get their way. This was her narcissistic rage being displayed. The narcissistic rage manifested through storytelling, lies, and the immediate start of a smear campaign to assassinate the good character and the favor that Joseph had found. This is, in fact, a form of narcissistic rage. The narcissist doesn't care, and this is what's important to understand about narcissism. The narcissist does not care about the supply. In this case, the supply was Joseph. Joseph would have given this narcissistic woman supply by sleeping with her. It would have satisfied that selfishness. But as we know about narcissists, they don't care if you are sleeping with them or if you are fighting with them so much as you are giving them some form of supply. They don't care about you as an individual. This person did not care about Joseph. I also want to let you know that this also shows that sexual encounters does not mean that there is true love. The way in which this woman was able to lie about Joseph, not caring that he could be caught or even killed as a result of her story that she made up about him, that says that she doesn't care about him. She did not care about Joseph. She did not love Joseph. She did not even want to know him as an individual. She saw the exterior. She saw the body and said, "I want that body. I want that body like a toy. I want to have sex with it." It wasn't even about Joseph. This narcissistic woman looked at it as an object. This is the objectification that narcissists do. I want sex with it. I want it. That body, that thing looks good. I want it. The fact that she's able to make up a story and possibly have him killed, arrested, or whatever, or even worse, right? Punished, tortured because of that action, doesn't matter. That right there is an indication that she never cared about Joseph. So we must learn, this is for you and for me, we must learn that seduction, sexuality has nothing to do with love. Somebody could want your body. Somebody could look at you and think you're beautiful and want you, but understand that, especially in today's world, you're going on dating sites, you're going on Tinder, you're putting your name out there, you don't want to be alone, but you fail to realize that in many of these cases, people are not loving you for you. They're objectifying you as you may be objectifying them, saying, "I want it. I want it to comfort me. I want it to have sex with. I want it." right? This is what has happened. And we see this in the rejection. When Joseph rejected her, that came full circle. And now we see just how much she really cared about Joseph, which she didn't. She may have wanted that muscular body, but that's the extent. And that's the extent of narcissism. When narcissistic people are approaching you in the dating world, they're telling you how beautiful you are. Chances are that's the extent of what they want. I want your beauty. I want your skin. I want your flesh. I want to feel your flesh against mine. That's what I want. I don't care about you. And this is displayed when narcissistic rage hits. When you deny them, they show you just how much they care about you, which they don't. So in this case, narcissism, she didn't care about Joseph, but watch this. She also didn't care about her husband. She didn't care about her husband, Potiphar, number one, because she was trying to sleep with Joseph, but number two, she didn't care that Joseph was a huge part in her own husband's success. Potiphar left Joseph in charge of the house because of the success and the favor that the Lord had in Joseph's life. Everything in the household worked great because Joseph was there. This woman in her narcissistic rage didn't care. She didn't care. I don't care how well things are working in this house. My narcissistic, my supply left me. I'm in rage right now. So she didn't even care about how orderly the house that she lived in was. This is where narcissism exists. It exists in this place where they fail to see. They fail to have empathy for people. They fail to have empathy for their husbands and wives. They fail to even see the overall picture of how great things are. Right? I'm going to share with you real quick one of the greatest, most confusing parts that I experienced with dealing with narcissistic in-laws, for example, is I was trying to fit in with in-laws. There was a period of time where everybody got along. I had a place within that family dynamic. But with the actions of a few narcissistic people who wanted to smear my name and discredit me and get me out of there, not only was it because they were experiencing their own narcissistic rage and they selfishly wanted to be, their narcissistic rage, they felt rejection or whatever their narcissistic thing is, but they also didn't think about the rest of the family dynamic and where I fit in with other people and how we all had a good time. They didn't care. And so not only did, in my situation with the in-laws, not only was it painful for me to leave and get away from that family, but there was also confusion throughout the others as to why we could all no longer get along, all because of a couple narcissistic people who wanted to cause this much damage. And Potiphar's wife did just that. She didn't care about the success of the house. She cared about nothing except herself and what she wanted. Verse 16, she kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him this story: that Hebrew slave you brought to us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. In verse 19, when his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was still with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. Now, this goes back to success. This is the most important thing. This message is not completely about the bad and the doom and the gloom of narcissism, right? I want you to understand something. This is probably the most important part about this that you and I can understand. Let's go back to the beginning. What was it that Joseph had that made him find favor and success to Potiphar, the second in command of Egypt? His success was wisdom, stature, reputation, and favor. I want you to understand something. On a personal level, Joseph's wisdom, stature, and his favor never left him. Joseph obviously was innocent in that situation. As many of you being involved with narcissists, you were innocent according to what the narcissist accused you of. Now, maybe you fell into the seductive trap. Maybe you went farther than you should have. But as far as what the narcissist accused you of doing, you were innocent. Joseph in this was innocent. And so he was able to still walk in his wisdom. He was able to still walk in his stature. He was able to still find favor. Why? Because he did not change. And the warden of the prison saw this. When Joseph was in the prison, the warden of the prison saw the success, saw Joseph's wisdom, saw the stature, saw the favor. Listen, no matter what narcissists do, no matter what smear campaigns they launch against you, they cannot change your personal success. They cannot change your wisdom. They cannot change your stature. They cannot change your reputation. It all stays with you. Now, the people around you may change. When narcissists smear your name, you may have to get out of that situation. Joseph was taken away from Potiphar, away from Potiphar's wife. He was put in prison, a new environment. But Joseph's wisdom, his stature, and his reputation stayed with him. You and me, when we get out of toxic situations, when our names are smeared, when we have to leave a toxic dynamic, when we have to find a new job, when we have to find a new family. For me, I had to come to St. Louis and get out of California even. But when we relocate, the us is still there. We are still that person. And we find favor then with new people, with new family. But this takes a lot of being able to let go of where we thought we were connected. Joseph has had to do this twice now. I know a lot of you think it's hard to let go of where you came from. A lot of you think it's hard to let go of family members. It's hard to let go of that ex-spouse. It's hard to let go of... Look at Joseph. He had to do it twice. Joseph had to let go of his brothers who first wanted to kill him, but then decided to sell him instead. He let go of them being family. Now, Joseph found himself in this place where he was he was in command of all of Potiphar's things. He had his job. He had this great reputation at that job. But because of the lies and the smear campaign of a narcissist, he now had to let that go. But what Joseph did not let go of is who he is. You and I should not or cannot let go of who we are. Who is that? He's successful. Even when he has nothing, he has his wisdom, his stature, his reputation, and through that, his favor. If you carry with you your wisdom and your stature, forget about how many times you've been rejected. Forget about the smear campaign that was launched about you. When you go to a new place, take with you your wisdom and your stature, and this will equal favor wherever you are. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen again. Listen, do you think that Joseph expected this narcissistic smear campaign after his own brothers, threw him out? No. I'm sure Joseph thought that his brothers was a isolated evil incident, but it wasn't. He came across this narcissistic abuse again with this woman. You and I may come across more narcissists in our lives, but as long as we maintain our wisdom, our stature, we will find favor no matter where we go. No matter what the narcissists do, they cannot change your personal success. It stays with you. The people around you may change, but you do not. So, it finishes with this, verse 22, when the warden put Joseph, or the warden of the prison put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison. And he was made responsible for all that was done there. And the warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success whatever he did. We're seeing Joseph finding success wherever he's at. And you and I have the same thing. You see, Joseph found success. Look, it's the exact same line of what happened when Joseph was with Potiphar. He found success and favor in everything he did. Narcissism crept in. Narcissistic abuse kicked Joseph out, but Joseph stayed the same. He moved on and he found success. Listen, and it may not have been where he wanted it, right? Many of you come out of narcissistic abuse saying, well, I'll never have the life that I had with them. Big deal. Joseph went from being in Potiphar's household. Potiphar was the second in command of Egypt. I imagine Potiphar had the mansion, right? He had the Rolls Royce. Joseph was living in the lap of luxury while he was Potiphar's main dude. But he was thrown out of that and put into prison. Dirt as a bed. Eating rice cakes, right? Whatever. But Joseph maintained the person he was, and he became in power over all in prison. Why? Because he remained himself. Listen, just because you no longer have the life that you thought you had with the narcissist doesn't mean you can't be successful where you are, even if you're in the dirt. Joseph understood this principle. And if you can maintain who you are and find success in the dirt, then don't worry, because the Lord will elevate you, as we'll find out later in the story. The Lord will elevate you back up out of the dirt into higher places again. Listen, he who is good with the small things in life will be good with the great things in life. I believe that Joseph had a taste of greatness when he was brought into Potiphar's household. Now, I believe it's no mistake the Lord wanted him to taste that greatness. But then the Lord also wanted to test Joseph by having him sent back to the dirt. Joseph, can you maintain who you are and your purpose in this life? Your wisdom, your stature, and finding favor. Can you do it in both places? Can you do it in the palace, and can you do it in the dirt? And some of you need to hear this message right now. Some of you thought that your greatness only existed when you were in the palace with the narcissistically abusive people. Can you also be great in the dirt with nothing? Don't worry about the palace, because if you're great in the dirt, you will get back into a palace. Listen, with that, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank you for being a part of Royal We Fellowship this morning. Have a blessed weekend, everybody, and a blessed week. And again, for those of you who would like to support Royal We Fellowship, you can do so. It's not required, but inspired. You can find links down below. And we'll be back next Saturday morning with more Royal We Fellowship. Have a blessed week, everybody. Thank you for being a part of this live stream.